Workforce Diversity Inclusion Committee meeting of May 25th. I can call this meeting to order. So I just wanted to give a minute just to acknowledge the tragedies that we've all experienced this month. It's been a lot of racialized violence. We had in Orange County, California, at the Presbyterian Church where Taiwanese people were targeted, Dallas, Texas, a salon in Koreatown, and then in Buffalo, the Tops grocery store targeting Black people. And then while we're still reeling from all of that, yesterday in Uvalde, Texas at the elementary school. So I know one of our goals this year was to continue investigating the issue that racism is a public health crisis, which I'm pretty sure everyone on this call can agree with. I would add that white supremacy is a public health crisis and gun violence is a public health crisis. Thank you, Deanna, for having the call with county employees last Friday to discuss what happened in Buffalo. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend, but I hope that went well and was well attended. Yeah, I just want to start off acknowledging that because that's been really upsetting and tired of having these conversations with my kids. Yeah. Anybody else want to share anything about any of those? Okay. All right. Sorry.
No, I think it's well, first of all, thank you for your leadership and just acknowledging those things. I think, just having a moment of silence, for each one of those children, babies, those parents who lost someone. And it's really, really important what you've done, and we continue to grieve and come together to the degree that we can and acknowledge all the fatigue, the horror that what we're experiencing. So thank you for making space for this.
Thanks. Okay, so getting to business here, we have minutes approval of the April 27th, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any additions or edits to those minutes? Okay, so we need a motion to approve the minutes from Kate, seconded by Veronica, and I guess just a raise of hands for those who approve. Wonderful. That passes. And then on to discussion items. And I'm rearranging the agenda just a little, just to respect Mona and Dominic's time. So we're gonna start with the CJC Community Justice Center update from Mona.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me here this afternoon. Just a brief update on what's going on with the CJC right now. The contract is still under negotiations with the city. Once that is resolved, we'll be looking to launch some of the joint plans. The first one will probably be the alternative response plan. We're still proceeding with the data analysis hiring, so we're hoping to have someone hired and have them start. Expected start date will be sometime this summer. We're also working on some partnerships with other organizations here in the community. So we're partnering with Harmony Airs on the 988 launch, and then also with the LEAD program, working on some of the community engagement and law enforcement healing stuff. We are also super, super excited to share the unarmed pilot program at the Sheriff's Department, which is pretty exciting, with a start date, I believe, of June 13th or something like that for the 2 sheriff clerks that were hired. So, things are moving along. We're processing all the plans, and hopefully they'll be, up and running with some groups forming and things of that nature.
Great, thank you, Mona. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Mona? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Okay. So next we have communication tools. Last meeting, we had talked about needing to do a better job advertising proclamations and resolutions coming out, and getting that information to employees and the community. Dominic.
Thanks. I wasn't really clued into all of last meeting's conversation, so I would really appreciate a bit of a bit more information, so I don't ramble. And then I'm happy to talk about some of my thoughts on this.
Sure. So Dominic, so he heard Henry had asked if we could learn more about the communication capabilities of the organization. It was around the topic of proclamations, other communication. How do people share information? I think what led into the conversation was that we know that the legislature does provide, does these proclamations or provides or updates on various things. How does that get out to the broader audience? And also as a part of our overall education as an organization, how can we use our communication tools to help educate our workforce above and beyond what we currently do? So then we said initially, this was our problem we wanted to do, but also before we decided, here's a solution, I said we should ask our communications director how other departments or other ways in which, what tools do we use here as an organization, without a specific answer in mind to that particular question. But I thought before we purchase the software or do something new, we know that you started, the people are doing newsletters, there's all kinds of things that you've started on behalf of the county. And so how do we optimize what we do? But then also you as our communications director, we would welcome any feedback that you think would be helpful, because I know a lot of times people will start something, but they don't have the staffing or capabilities to finish it. So we just wanted to take a step, not step back, but just learn first and then decide. So.
Okay. That gives me a little bit more information. Does anyone have anything else you wanted to add before I give a couple of thoughts? Okay. So a couple of things. One is, I think there's 2 different distinct audiences here. I think you're talking about the general public and then the internal staff. I'll start with the internal staff piece. I think the typical method of communicating to staff that we've done in the past has been email messages from leadership, mainly county administrator or chair of the legislature, depending on the type of topic or what have you. And those have been since my time here, I've been here for just over 2 years. They've been sometimes for like the month, like we know we do one for Pride Month or for Juneteenth, and some of these sort of big sort of events or proclamations like that. And they often reference the proclamation that Lisa will write or that Jason had done before. One idea that came up quite frequently for staff before my time here, and I've been briefed on by several different departments or people, has been digital signage throughout the county organization. Digital signage would be like television screens or monitors in both public places or when you get up an elevator or things like that. Lots of organizations use those to talk to clients that come in the door and or staff. That kind of went on pause during the during the pandemic, especially as less people were in buildings. So that's certainly one thing that could come back up, because I think that allows us to have graphics or do things differently or be a little bit more celebratory around some of these things for employees. And I have some information that has been done by previous staff members. They gave it to me before they left, information on digital signage. And I'll just add on that we do have the vendor who does our streaming, some of the streaming technology for the legislature chambers, also manages digital signage for a whole bunch of different places. You know, they have that capability. So that's one area that hasn't been fully realized or anything or budgeted for, that's been talked about on this before. So that's what we currently do for staff, and one opportunity would be digital signage. For the audience of the wider community, there's a few things that we do. The first thing is that people can tune into the legislature meetings and hear them read aloud. That does happen. Some people who are specifically a part of those organizations listen in and then share those things out. Like if it's related to the Asian American community, I know that IAAA, the Asian American Alliance, shares that, or other things. So that's one way, but that's a little passive on our part, right? We want to do something more active. Other ways, I include things as often as possible. I guess I'd reframe that. Quite often, I include things in the highlights. If they're of particular relevance or spoke about more by legislators, the highlights can get really long sometimes. So I do make some editorial decisions on not every proclamation making it in there. Things that are celebration or identity type month or cultural type month based, I do try to include those every time with at least some statement from the proclamation. Those the highlights currently go out to about 2,000, a little over 2,000 people in the community, and then are also often reprinted in the Ithaca Times and the Finger Lakes community newspapers. So they do get into some print areas. Every once in a while, I will also pitch an idea about one of those different resolutions to the media. So I might, call up Tompkins Weekly or the Ithaca Voice or somebody and say, hey, it would be great if you wrote an article about this story that we've seen during this particular month. That's a capacity-based thing. I haven't really done that as much lately, but that's something that I'll do every now and then. We'll likely do that for our Annette Gordon Reed event that we'll have, for example. So that's it's in the highlights, and oftentimes I'll take it from the highlights and then we'll do social media posts. So we'll come up with graphics. That's in the past has been a little difficult to come up with graphics for all of these events. But now that we have media production assistant Rob Henry on staff, he has camera equipment and is able to go take photographs. So for example, if there's on the next Black History Month, we'll do photos of flags at different buildings. Same with Pride Month, we'll do the same. So they're really localized images that represent what we're trying to share with the community and our values. So the graphics, I think, will improve, and that's something we'll do better over time as well. And then the Gov delivery platform that Deanna was referencing, there are somewhere around 40 newsletters that departments send to the community on various different topics. Not all departments are actively using that tool. So, not all 40 are being sent frequently, but we have a total of somewhere around 40,000 subscriptions across those 40 newsletters. And the highlights go out to one of those that the public can sign up for it. We have one on diversity, equity, and inclusion programming that I sent recently the Juneteenth press release and Annette Gordon Reed presentation to, that has somewhere around 1,000 subscribers to that newsletter list. And we could certainly consider creating a new newsletter list about proclamations as well. That's something we could possibly do. But we do have the ability to use that Gov delivery newsletter system to do emails out to groups. So I don't have a lot of creative additional ideas until I had this conversation here, but that's sort of the lay of the land of what's on my mind on this particular topic.
That's great. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions for Dominic? Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have a quick question back to you all, if you have a moment, is just feedback. Is what I'm describing working, or are there gaps that you feel like, you know what, really you should be always writing all the proclamations in the highlights, or have you seen what we've been doing on social media? Is there any feedback to what I'm doing on those different topics that I could improve upon? I'd be very interested in hearing from this group on that.
No, I think you've already expanded the capacity from what I've gathered of the organization. So I think that's great. In terms of how we wanted to use the proclamations would not just be educational, but we would probably have to develop some content to provide some educational information in relationship to it. Because I was thinking we didn't just want to send the proclamations. I think we were trying to encourage the development of the staff. And so I think that is our work, how I see it, like we would need to add content to or help frame the questions or how departments can use this information, where they should be going, how should they be interacting, what are some of the tools and norms they should be thinking about. To me, that would be the next step, but I think we would need to provide more information to you about how we would like that to be laid out. And that's just my 2 cents.
Okay.
Veronica.
Can I just talk? I don't remember how this works. Can you hear me, by the way? Okay, great. I like the digital signage idea. I'm just thinking immediately, like I've spent a lot of time in Cornell buildings, for instance, and you get kind of wandering around and seeing the digital signs. I feel like you kind of get passively a better sense of just like what is going on in the department or organization whose buildings you're walking through. So I'm curious what other people think of that. And I guess I'd also like to hear a little more from the staff on, like the staff who are not at every legislature meeting in this meeting right now, how much the proclamations are even, like I hear you, Deanna, that you want to do we want to do more education and engagement around the proclamations, but I'm wondering like, is even just making people aware of like, hey, we proclaimed it's like Older Americans Month or something, because I would guess that most of the employees don't know that when it happens, but maybe I'm really off base.
I'll just say it's been really helpful to me, those email subscriptions. I signed up for a bunch of those, and I try to stay on top of meetings and watch them, but I'm not always good at that. So getting the highlights sometimes, reminds me, or I'll read the highlight and I'll say, oh, I think everything I need to know is here, so I don't really need to watch that one, or I'm curious about something I see in the highlights, so then I'll go back and watch that meeting. And so that's like, as a staff member and as just a resident, I appreciate those, and I feel like I'm getting more information than I ever did before in that way.
Oh yeah, I forgot to say I really like the emails too. I think I'm signed up for all of them, and it's like, if it's a proclamation or legislature highlights, obviously I already like heard it all, but I appreciate the digestible form it's in. And often my boss in my other job is subscribed to them and will just like ask me about something that was in them. So I know she's reading them, keeping careful tabs.
And Veronica, I don't think you're that far off base with other employees possibly not knowing about proclamations. I'll be completely honest with you. When I worked at mental health, I had no idea that there were proclamations. Obviously, I work in the legislature office now, and I help put them together. So way different, view of things. So I don't think you're that far off with that. But I know, obviously signing up for those emails helps. I wonder, Dominic, is there some way that you could do, I don't want to be like in their face necessarily, but with things like this, just a simple kind of like your newsletters that you do for other, that you can sign up with the emails, do something for the employees, super simple, just saying, hey, the legislature on this day declared it to be this, whether it's, Older Americans Month or, coming up in June, we're going to have LGBTQ plus and Juneteenth. And then I can send you the Word documents for those proclamations so that they're right there and people can read them as they want to.
Yeah, we could certainly do, I think we could do more for communication to staff in an engaging way. And one thing I think would really help with that, in addition to the concept of digital signage, which is a bit of a ways away, we really need to think that whole thing through, is our county intranet site. So for example, I think organizations have this, a lot of larger organizations have the capacity to archive messages sent by the CEO of that organization or by HR in one central place so that people can go and refer to them. When Cornell's president sends a message to stick to the staff, it shows up on their webpage. That's not something that we've ever had the capacity to do in that way here. And I would love to see that as one way to do it, which would give a place for those things to live. Because I'm worried that if something lives in just email, we will sort of miss that ability, especially for the amount of new staff that come on or people trying to reference things that happened before. So I'd love to see that built into our intranet site at the very least, and maybe even a public sort of version too. But all of that technology piece really is in ITS's work plan right now, from what I understand. So some more check-ins would need to be done there, but I know they're really at the beginning stages of working on those things, and any edits to the website are quite a significant thing. But I would love that capacity, because I think if Lisa sends something to staff that says, hey, here's this, resolution or whatever, linking to that place where people can see all of the statements and all of the proclamations in one place, so people can sort of get a sense of what the organization is like and believes and cares about. So I agree, and I'd love to see like the infrastructure built out for us to do that. Kate?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the intranet and the digital signage, if I remember right, in conversations around the 2018 climate, or so the survey that came out, were things we were talking about. And I know, like, through digital signage, we probably need to think that out. But one of the things that particularly I remember a conversation around that was to help inform employees who don't have internet access, whether that's at highway or whatnot. So I think that in phasing that in, that should be one of the first things that we're thinking about, making sure that we have screens available. And if we're doing those things, that we're trying to get information to those particular employees internally, would be one of the first things that I just to put on the radar of the plan.
A question for our committee. What do we want to accomplish? The reason why I'm asking this is because to me, the tool for what it is what drives this. And so how I'm understanding our conversation is a little different than how I thought I understood the conversation, but that doesn't mean we don't have room for growth, right? Because we can, dream big, and we should do those things. Are we thinking education? Because education, is sharing information one way, but also we don't know whether or not the employees have gained any insight. It's not a reflective thing, and so that goes so far. It's not that it's not important, because it is meaningful. Then are we trying to use this as a opportunity to teach? Are we trying to build a sense? Are we trying to communicate just for the purpose of communicating? But to me, those are some of the questions that I think we would want to answer as we think about how we want to go about this, because I think Dominic is extraordinarily creative and can get us wherever we want to go or help us. But I think we'll have to think about, as a committee, why we're doing it, and what we want to accomplish with the workforce, with whatever communication it is. My only reticence with thinking about more communications is, you lose potency and anytime you give so much information to people and how they receive it. And so I think those things are important, but the more emails that we send from county administration, it means less to the employees. So I think that the power of hearing from Shauna, our legislative chair, or Lisa, or any legislators, because they have something that they really think is important and they want to say it, right? And we don't want to dilute any of the other, like it's Mental Health Awareness Month is this month. So I think that is incredibly important. If we hear all the stories we're hearing from public safety, HHS, in the community, that month is, critical important. So thinking about how we share out that messaging is something that I would hope that we can engage in dialogue and how we want to do this. And so knowing that we may have multiple goals.
Annie?
Thanks. So I know I've heard from some staff and a few legislators regarding, okay, we do say a proclamation, but what are we doing? What are we doing in that area? What do we need to do? What have we done? So those are some of the questions that I've had asked. I don't know if some of, it would take more work to include some of that, but those are just, I'm just brainstorming some things. And another idea I was wondering about was a couple of facts that maybe if we're not talking about something that we're doing in the county or want to do, and maybe along with that, how to get involved, like, come to speak at this committee, or you can send this is being worked on in WDIC. So please send an email to us if you have suggestions on how blah, 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 or this is being worked on in public safety. But another idea is like just some facts, like, we talked, and so Rachel, thank you for starting the meeting off with acknowledging the shootings that have happened most recently, and so many of them have happened this year. But just asking, how does this affect people? Is there more we could be doing? Is there, where do they go for resources? And I know, Deanna organized something, so people could talk about that, but just something more with it, maybe something more personal or something. And I don't know if these get put up, posted anywhere, but that could kind of be the thing where, people kind of talk at the water cooler. Oh, here's, when you literally water cooler talk of, oh, did you know that there's been this many shootings, or did you know that there's been, there's this many seniors in our county, blah, blah, blah. So those are just some ideas.
Thank you, Annie. Veronica?
Thank you. I agree with Annie about the importance of doing something more tangible than just making a proclamation along with these proclamations. Or I know, I think I asked about that sometime, maybe not publicly. And I agree with Deanna about the importance of thinking, what are our goals in doing this communication? What are we trying to achieve, and how just sending out a bunch of emails is not necessarily going to let people think more deeply about this. And I'm now going to say something maybe contradictory to all of this, which is I'd like one of the goals we hold to be just simple, very baseline awareness for more people of things like, hey, it's Juneteenth week, or hey, it's Pride Month. Because, if it sounds if throughout the organization we don't have that among most, 40, 50, 80% of employees, I don't know, I don't have a number for it. That I think is a reasonable thing to strive for. Also thinking about everyone's got their own way of interacting with their email inbox, and I don't want to get into a debate about that, but I know, for me, if I have received one really good, thoughtful email on a topic that I wasn't expecting or planning to engage in, I'm not necessarily going to read it. I'm going to be oh, interesting, and carry on. For listservs that I'm on, obviously, if you send a specific email to me, speaking to all my constituents now, I will read it carefully, but these mass blasts. But if I see something again and again and again, and I might not have engaged in it deeply, but those repeated touches are going to get it to where, yeah, maybe I'm talking about it at the water cooler, like Annie said. So I I think that's valuable, even if you can look at any piece of communication and go like, ugh, but like, what is this? It's not that important. I think it does matter, just anecdotally, if you send a bunch of them.
Thanks, Veronica. Lisa?
Thanks. I agree with so much of what's been said, everything that's been said. And thinking back to the results of our several climate surveys and where we're going with this, and the progress we've made has been great, and we want to keep going. And I think to many points that I think departments do, there's unevenness in terms of information that gets shared among departments to, through department heads to staff. The more that we can deliver information in an accessible way to staff, I think will further the sense of inclusion and belonging, that and just general knowledge that people have about what's happening through the county and across departments. And that's something that certainly we've heard from staff, that it's something that they want to know and want to see. And the way that we deliver it is, I think, it has to be done in multiple ways that many of you have spoken about. But I appreciate the conversation. I think it's great to keep moving forward.
Anyone else have anything on this topic of communications?
I'll just add one brief plea, is that as things are in development and as things are being written to be used as a proclamation, if I get more of a heads up sometimes, it's a little easier to prepare rather than, because I'm not reading every single proclamation before they hit the legislature floor. I can certainly do a little bit more of that, but it would be really nice to know ahead of time that people are really interested in getting something out further. I try to get, for example, something like the highlights or my write-up the day after the meeting. And so, for example, might not have time to put together a graphic or something more engaging or something, or things like that. But if I know ahead of time, I think I can be a part of helping be creative on how we might get something out. So, so just an ask to folks, if you're working on something, and Deanna often does this, but if you're working on something, let me know a little bit ahead of time. I'm happy to participate in getting it out there.
Dr. McBean Claiborne?
That made me laugh. But thank you. When the question came up, and certainly something we've grappled with, part of it for me was not only making people, if people are not aware, how are they then honoring what it is we're asking to be done? And so the communication link is incredibly important to building an inclusive organization. How do people get on board with the celebration of, Pride Month, which is coming up when the legislature has proclaimed? What are they doing? So part of that communication is not only to make sure that people are aware, but also to encourage action, because each proclamation has some sort of action around it. And then to be able to then share across the department with colleagues and others about what we're doing, so that we begin to build sort of that expectation of recognition, that expectation of honoring and celebration, whatever the proclamation may be. And it's more than proclamation. Sometimes it's the resolutions that have, action things that matter to employees, and we don't know. So I just want to make sure that that second part of it is acknowledged as well, not just communicating, but creating avenues for people to discuss, talk about what action steps they're taking to promote what is being asked of or stated in the proclamations and resolutions.
Thank you. Kate?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we were talking about the water cooler, and as some of the staff that don't have internet access, I think maybe an actual, I had put in the chat, a physical location where we actually post physical copies of the proclamations, so that staff could actually see them, just to know that they're there. I know, like on the third floor of HSB, we have a place where the unions have a billboard, right? So all the things that you'd want to know about the unions are at that billboard, and it's not, whether they're waiting for their food to warm up or whatever, you always see people standing, looking and reading what's there. So might be just something to.
I agree that that sort of thing is a very good idea, and sometimes looking at things creatively in order to grab attention, that we can put the proclamation on a sign. People may or may not read the sign, may or may not register. It would still perhaps achieve more than relying only on the email. But then, circumstantially, some other strategies can apply. Like this one would not be budgetarily feasible, I'm pretty sure. But I was involved with an organization once that put important organizational announcements on cakes that were served in the break room. With a little poster above it with a picture of the cake icing for when people had chopped it all up and you couldn't read the important announcement anymore. And trust me, that got everybody's attention. Everybody knew what was on today's cake. So, again, budgetarily impractical, but, some of these sort of gestures also in the spirit of, celebration or something like that can be considered from time to time as a way to be like, oh yeah, it's just another announcement of, we honor blankety blank, just break through that information fatigue and tickle the imagination a little instead.
Great.
On brief note about the action question is, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Leslie, because that's something I thought about coming into this too, is how we get people to reflect on things or, experience something in the community. And I have many times in those highlights linked to something that's not in the resolution, but is happening in the community that I'm aware of. And almost without fail, every time I do that, I hear from a different organization in town who calls me and says, you put the history center in there, but you didn't put my organization. And I was like, yes, I don't know everything that's going on. I'd like to, so, certainly let me know. But just as a note of the thinking as we're preparing them, doing an environmental scan of different things happening to sort of make sure that information gets across, because I know I can count on those coming through the inbox quite frequently. And just a positive nod to the History Center. They are easy to recognize often because they do things that are so relevant to the time of year or to things. In specific, their recent census exhibit, and its breakdown of ethnicities in the community and the Asian American experience in Tompkins County have been examples I've used along Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month and other things that's particularly relevant. So if you haven't gone to that exhibit yet, definitely go. But also a note of, environmental scan of organizations doing that work in town.
Lisa, did you have something too?
Oh, nothing new, just to say, I know for, in terms of the posting of the proclamations for the departments for which there are proclamations, say mental health or Dispatchers Week or Older Americans Month, typically those are posted in those organizations and the staff read them. It's just that not everyone else in the organization necessarily sees those, but for the staff to whom it applies, they often do. It's a great idea. I think it's a nice gesture and it increases awareness.
Rob, I thought you might get us around the food policy when you mentioned cake. And I sent Lisa a note and just said, we said about cake, tying that to this. I'm like, does that mean we can have cake? I immediately sent a note to Lisa and Teams and said that.
Great idea. Brilliant. We should have thought of it earlier. have cake all the time.
Okay, anything more on this communications piece from anyone before we move on? All right, thank you so much, Dominic. This has been great.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Anytime.
Okay, so unfortunate news. We had, I don't know if it was a miscommunication or what, but we don't have a Pride Proclamation yet.
Yes.
To vote on. Brittany?
I actually took the one from last year and made a couple edits. I don't know if you want me to share it and see what people think.
Sure.
Sure.
So I just also for the committee to know, a couple months ago, we had a conversation about who was going to do what when, and it appears as though wherever it was landing, something got lost in translation. And so we found out a day or so ago that wasn't done, even though it is of critical importance and it needs to be done. And so we're going to make sure there is a Pride Month proclamation, but the colleagues we thought were, participating, or so again, there was a breakdown somewhere. We're not quite sure, but it needs to be done. And so we appreciate Brittany assisting with this. And I said I would look at it in the next day or so, knowing that we want to have that for the June 7th meeting. But we wanted to bring that up today because we have a Juneteenth month proclamation. And when we discussed this a couple of months ago, they were both discussed simultaneously about who was going to do what when. And so we want to make sure that they both receive the same level of, what do I want to say, interest in communication, that not one is better than the other, and not one is getting less interest. So we just want to communicate that.
Thank you, Deanna.
Sure.
So how procedurally, how do we do this without it being approved through committee to get to the ledge on the 7th?
Not all proclamations go through a committee before they go to the legislature. So that's not a necessary step necessarily. It'd be nice to have this committee's blessing on something like Juneteenth and LGBTQ, anything relating to the work that this committee does. But it's not a necessity.
Okay. So we can do that by email and just get it to the ledge for the 7th, and that'll be good. Okay. Okay. So now we have the Juneteenth proclamation, which we do have. It should be in everyone's inbox. If not, I can, thank you, Dominic. If not, I can share my screen. Does anybody need me to share my screen to see? Okay.
Could we, Rachel, would you mind if we had Dr. Clark kind of provide a little context for the Juneteenth week and how this fits in there, so that the rest of our committee knows like this is a part of a week's festivities, and then also for the community can get some information.
So I'll share my screen in this case. Where the slate of activities is located. Okay, let me pull this down some so you can see it. If I can. Why is this acting up on me? Oh, got it. Okay, so the slate of activities includes the presentation of the Juneteenth Proclamation next Wednesday from the city of Ithaca, and on Tuesday, June 7th for Tompkins County during the legislative meeting. Then there's the presentation by Dr. Annette Gordon-Reed on Monday, June 13th at 4:15 p.m. This will be a virtual event. On Wednesday, the 15th, Block Business Leaders of Colors will be hosting a Black-owned business expo at the Tompkins County Center for History and Culture from 11 to 2 p.m. There will be a couple of block businesses that will be providing catering there for the event, and individuals will have to pay for their food. There will be a little fee involved for the cuisine. And then on Friday, June 17th, there will be a video of a historical walking tour related to Ithaca and the African American community. And the time and location of that, or the starting point of that walking tour, will be announced not long from now. So this is the slate of activities which I will be sending to Dominic and Rob for them to review and to help to push out and to promote these slate of events. And those, of course, will be also be part of a larger spectrum of Juneteenth activities, which include, of course, the Southside's annual event festival. On that Saturday, there will be a luncheon on Thursday from Southside, and then the next day there will be a panel discussion held at Calvary Baptist Church on Albany Street. The festival that Saturday, and then that Sunday there will be a health fair that will be held at the Bernie Milton Pavilion. So that's the big piece in terms of the larger context of Juneteenth activities involving the city and the county and Southside. Now I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have any questions, comments about that before I share my screen with the proclamation? Okay. Let me pull this up. Juneteenth. Okay. Okay, can you all see that?
Sure. Rachel, can I just make a quick comment? I just wanted to
Yes.
thank, this is a part of committee. I want to thank my colleague, J.R. Claiborne, who served as the editor for this and added content as well related to the military and veterans experience. And so I just wanted everyone to acknowledge the hard work that or be aware of the hard work that he's done. This was not one person, but a team of people, but specifically, but J.R. did a lot of heavy lifting. So we appreciate what he's done for this.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll just give everybody a second to take a look at this because I know it was not in our inboxes for very long before this meeting.
Also, just a little bit of information for our colleagues. The reason why we're doing it sooner than the city needs to have it for common council sooner than the county does. And so that moved the dates up by a couple weeks sooner than what we had originally intended. And so in order for us to be able to partner with the city so they have it in a timely manner, we were asked to make sure this was to them by tomorrow. And so that's our hope, is to get this approved. And if you have any questions or changes, we'll take those edits in and make the adjustments.
Rachel, you're moving a little too fast.
Sorry.
Can you go back down just right there, right there?
Okay.
Thank you. Whereas Juneteenth remind us that second whereas on that page you're showing that decades of collective action have demonstrated measurable progress, albeit slowly, for strengthening gradually, while persistent inequity and injustice for African Americans continue. In education, socioeconomic mobility, healthcare access, and public safety. Thank you.
Thanks for pausing us on that clause, Leslie. May I suggest we add employment?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
You think right after education?
Anywhere before.
Yeah, that would be a good place to put it because it's just before socioeconomic mobility.
The clause right above it lands a little weird for me, and I'm struggling to articulate why. And I'm wondering if someone can explain it. The whereas African Americans have changed the face of education in the United States by protecting access and opportunity, insisting on the inclusion of all histories, and guaranteeing the rights to education for all youth. I think that's really awesome to acknowledge, and it lands a little weird when the very next one says that persistent inequity continues in education. So what is meant by the guaranteeing the rights to education for all youth?
I think when.
Oh, go ahead, Deanna.
No, go ahead, Dr. Clark. Go ahead.
Okay. I would say, in a sense, you have a sort of juxtaposition there. In that, on the one hand, there have been these contributions, and yet the struggle continues. So for me, it's a both and. At least the way I read it, and it's been the both and that has been just the persistent through line of the Black experience in this country, progress and struggle.
I agree, Dr. Clark. That's where we're coming from because, we just had a moment of silence, earlier, today for those who were, massacred in Buffalo. So we have hope at the same time. It's like we would be be unfortunate if we didn't acknowledge. I don't think that's what you're suggesting, Veronica, at all. I was just trying to explain. You didn't. You weren't saying that at all. It just means this the tension by which we're trying to produce this and being authentic. And so we can absolutely make changes, but just he hit the spirit by which we were, JR and I are struggling to come up with and address things.
That's helpful, thank you. Yeah, definitely was not proposing taking it out. Just the wording almost sounded like to me, even though I know you wouldn't mean that like the problems in education are like now solved and that struggle has ended, which like clearly not true.
To be sure.
I think for me, it's a little odd that it says the 13th through the 20th. I was trying to find my copy because I did mark it up. I apologize. mean, Juneteenth is celebrated from the 13th through the 19th. So I don't know why the 20th is there.
It's because it's the
Maybe
actual observed day for the employees. And JR
Thank
and I had this conversation. We weren't sure we had the 19th, but then it came up. But that's okay. We were taking a liberty, if that's okay with you all.
Well, I will say that I don't like that liberty, but whatever
Okay.
you're gonna come up with is fine.
We can take it out. We were just saying the
That's
county
just
is
me. That is just me.
We
Could
can
it
take
be
it out.
reworded, Deanna, could it be reworded in such a way, saying that, 13th through 19th and then the 20th, because in the previous whereas it says that it is observed on the 20th. So I kind of agree with Leslin. Say, because it is the 13th through the 19th and it's being observed on the 20th, because it's not always going to be the 13th. And I realize these change every year, but yeah, it could be recognized on the 18th or the 20th. I don't know.
Oh,
But
sure.
just my suggestion. I'm not a committee member, so.
No, we're fine with whatever, this is first pass at it. So whatever the committee decides, we can sure do that. We just wanted to call distinction to the fact that the county is observing this. And so however we go about that is fine with us.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tend to agree, since we're saying that we are observing it on the 20th right above, that changing that to the 19th would make sense. Does everybody else agree
And
with
the only
that?
reason we're observing it on the 20th is because the actual 19th falls on a Sunday,
Right,
correct?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But does it say anywhere in this proclamation that the specific date of Juneteenth is the 19th?
I think it did in the beginning, didn't it? Let's see.
Yeah, I think it did. And let's see. Okay, the first clause.
Yes. This right here.
Yeah, there. And then it also references the actual 19th in the clause where we're saying we're going to observe it on the 20th as well.
It
Right.
doesn't say that it is.
No.
But it doesn't say that that is the official holiday.
The 19th is a different 19th. The April 19th is just the meeting.
Oh, right. Yes. Where it was approved.
Oh, no.
It might
Oh,
be
I'm
worth
sorry.
adding some clarity that the day holiday is the 19th, even though I'm not suggesting these words, even though it's this particular year in 2022, it's observed on Monday, June 20th.
I think in that first whereas, if you just put a comma and add, let's see, became aware of their right to freedom on June 19th, 1865. The date that officially became, I'm not suggesting these words either, but something like that. A day that's officially recognized as Juneteenth, as the Juneteenth holiday or something like that. Or the day, not date, but day. It's the 19th.
Or that day now officially recognized?
That is now officially.
It's not just now, it's been recognized as the official holiday of Juneteenth for a very long time in Texas
Good night.
and one other place in the South, which is escaping me now. I think that does it.
Yeah, this looks good.
I think it looks great. Thank you for everyone who contributed.
Mhm.
Okay.
Rachel?
Yes.
Will you said you were making edits to this. Will you send this back to me this way? 'Cause
Yes.
we have to mirror the copy for the city. We have to get that back to them right after this. So I can connect with JR. Thank you.
Yes. I'll send it to you as soon as we wrap up today. Okay, so we can need then a motion to approve this Juneteenth proclamation for 2022. I can't see everybody, so I'm gonna
Move.
stop sharing.
Second.
Thank you. I don't know
Second.
who said,
Me.
okay,
That was Leslin moving.
Yes.
thank you. I need to stop sharing. Stop share. Okay. So let's do vote with raise of hands. Oh, but we can't see Annie or Rob.
The hand is raised.
Thank you, Rob. And Annie said she'd be in and out, so that carries. And I know she would be raising her hand if we could see her.
And I
Okay.
apologize for my camera. I'm just eating lunch, so I'm trying to be polite.
Thank you. All right, so I will send those to you, Deanna. And our last item for discussion is the values rollout, which I think is Lisa or Amy, but Amy's not here.
Sorry about that. That was a county attorney. The values rollout, we have come up with some ideas that we wanted to share with the group for values rollout starting in June and July, knowing we want to couple that with some of the work of the diversity statement. And so we just wanted to give an update to the committee on some of the ideas, including some of the signage and work that will be happening. Before we do anything, we'll want to share, or as a part of this, start rolling out, get some of your feedback and ideas, around some of the work, knowing that some of the things that Team Jedi has done, looked at this information as well. And it's just a part of our ongoing wanting to, provide updates to this committee as it's come up. And so it's very brief, just wanted to keep that on our eyes forward on that. And Lisa, if you have any comments, Lisa's been a part of some of the discussions as well, you want to add, but that's why that was listed as an item for comment.
No, I think you hit on it, Deanna. It's also something with the upcoming employee picnic at the end of August, something that we want to touch upon there as well when we have everyone together.
Also, and if you haven't, as an aside, please sign up for the Cornhole Tournament. We're encouraging all employees to participate. County administration is in a fierce battle. Every person, every staff member has a team. There's teams of 2, so we want you to come out. And then also, I've been asked to be the bingo announcer, so love to see you guys there. Please come to the employee picnic.
Where is everyone practicing their cornhole pitching?
We're gonna be in DeWitt Park soon. I'm bringing my cornhole in. And
Okay.
There's been a lot of trash talk up here in county admin between the teams. It's like, it's pretty fierce.
It's a serious matter.
We're all gonna need some practice then.
Yes.
Do your partners
bring our
have to be
A-game.
county employees?
Oh, good question.
We don't know, but Veronica, if you need we can get you somebody. Just as long as, or according, my partner is Ann Hader Collins. Just as
You
long as
guys are
you're
going down.
comfortable with 3rd or 4th, 5th place, just as long as you're comfortable with that, we welcome.
Is this a game we've done in previous picnics?
I don't think so. No.
I think it's been there for fun, but not as like a competition.
Ah, I see. This thing is getting heated. Okay.
Is it
Sorry,
gonna
I
be
didn't-
like a bracket?
Yeah.
There's no official gambling at work, but there will be some competition going on for the cornhole competition. We got names, titles, there's all kinds of threats going on here, but just in terms of just some of the things that we think about here at WDIC, like we're really excited. And I think Lisa has been a leader. We appreciate her kind of starting the competition. And so you see Rachel here says she doesn't have a partner. Maybe you guys can get
Do
on,
now.
Yes.
All right, you're on, Deanna, Lisa.
Now, each team has to come up with a name as well. So Deanna, share your name.
We're the frenemies.
Frenemies.
I did not come up with that, but this is what we've come up with. We have all kinds of names. So Lisa, Dom, have you guys come up with a name for your team?
We're floating some around, but we haven't decided on one yet. We gotta get there.
Okay.
Okay, got to get creative. There's a lot of fun to be had up there, it seems.
County administration, yes. We just, taking in the spirit of what that we really do. HR did a great job last year with the employee picnic, and so we're taking it all in and wanting to be a part. They're our neighbors, and so they're just 2 floors down, and we share a lot of time and resources. So I'll let them know if you guys. And also, they may be looking for volunteers for the employee picnic. So if they do, I'll let them know WDIC to the rescue. We need to.
Leslyn, were you starting to raise your hand for a minute there?
I was, but I was enjoying the banter. Trying to decide which team I'm gonna bet on.
Oh.
I work for a very competitive organization, so this is good banter.
Oh, this has
I
become a
just wanted
city county thing.
ask a quick question about if you all are paying attention to the Facing Race conference, and if there's been any talk about trying to attend or so on. Okay. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
I know there's been an invitation to WDIC. We talked about it. Maybe it wasn't the last meeting, but the one before that, for all to are they letting you know, Deanna?
Yes, they were asked to let me know so we could get people signed up, because there were 2 options. There was an in-person option, but there's also a virtual registration as well. And then I know the rates have gone up a little bit. It depends on what you decide to do. But yes, if there's something you still want to do, let us know. But yes, we shared that here. In addition to some members of Team Jedi expressed interest in going as well. And I believe, Veronica, you're going as well, right? You will be in attendance.
Yes, well, I still need to follow up with our wonderful clerks to actually get signed up. But yeah, and I'm trying to do that without WDIC funds because we have our own with the legislature. And I know, well, I wanted to ask too, I think we talked about at a previous WDIC meeting of trying to get folks who aren't really plugged into specific diversity stuff at all, but might benefit from going to this conference to know about it. I don't know, can you speak a little to that? Not that this was why you called on me.
No, sure. Oh, I thought, when I called on you, which is really, I was thinking when I said that, I was just to Leslyn's point of, she was just mentioning, and we talked about it. And so people being plugged in related to this, typically how we have done this before is look at the budget and figure out, who would benefit most, and then also what projects and things go with some of the topics and things like that, and how we want to do that. We have some colleagues who, will be going from Team Jedi, and I need to speak with, probably work with our HR department more in terms of travel funds and what that would look like in a more robust manner. I don't have a lot of experience in that particular space and how to do that, because since it's been with COVID, I'm not aware of anybody who's actually gone anywhere really for the most part, to any conferences in person. And so that'll be something to be looking at as well.
Can you remind me of the dates again? I know it's in November.
It's November 17 to 19.
Okay, 17th to 19th. Okay. I will most likely participate probably online, because I may also be, I might also be involved in some personal travel around that time.
Do you think, Rachel, maybe we could have it on the next meeting agenda as well?
Yes.
And then we can maybe clarify.
So we are looking at sending some people in person. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thanks for bringing that up, Leslyn. Does anyone else have any other reports or updates? I think that's it for our discussion items. Nobody. All right. I think we are set to adjourn then. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. See you all soon.
All right, take care.
Have a good one,
Take care,
everybody.
Thank
everyone.
you.